Hello and welcome to the Neighborhood Money Podcast, a video podcast here to help you build a life you deserve. Welcome to episode 51, and today we're going to talk all about the buy now, pay later service. Drew, traditionally it's been either getting a personal loan or using a credit card when you go out and buy stuff. But now there's an option to, when you go to the actual store, if you're shopping online, they actually give you the option to finance right there through a variety of different companies where you are going to take probably smaller purchases or you're going to take loans out on smaller purchases than you would in the past. And it's really at that point of sale. So today we're going to talk all about what that is, the pros and cons of it, and actually what we think about this type of service when looking to buy different things out in the marketplace.
Yeah, this is a little bit different type of an episode. I think will be pretty fun though. Talking about these point of sale financing is really what they are, and typically is zero interest financing at that. And with all that said, these type of payments can really entice spending and make it very tempting to make a purchase that you might not have before because you didn't have the cash in your account and you weren't really wanting to take a loan out for it. So these are a very interesting type of financial tool, and I think the market was asking for it and they saw a need and they came in and are being successful with it.
But before we dive into the nuts and bolts of this episode, I do want to put a little plug in the beginning of this episode for this podcast. So if you guys find value in this podcast, consider dropping a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts and leaving us a review, as well as if you're watching over on YouTube, consider subscribing to our channel, liking this video if, again, it provides value to you, and let us know in the comments what you guys think about the buy now, pay later model. All right, Drew, that's enough of that. Let's dive right into what exactly is the buy now and pay later. And you kind of were just talking about it a little bit. It's that point of sale. It's when you're going in, whether it's buying clothes, whether it's, a variety of different places now offer it, but it's going in, you're probably buying smaller type purchases, and you have the option to, rather than say, you go out and buy $200 worth of clothing, rather than paying in cash or paying in credit card, now you have the option to say, okay, well, maybe I will take a small X amount a month loan, like let's just say 6-month loan, and I can make installment payments on it rather than needing the cash up front.
It's kind of nice with these buy now, pay later in this industry, and it's where you're not really having to take out a credit card, or if you have a credit card, you're not really adding to that. And then if you're not paying it back within your time frame of 6 to 10 weeks, let's say, because most of these point of sales can be they're more short term, you're not paying the 24% interest on top of your balance. They typically are zero interest. And when I was first hearing about those, I think I saw it with PayPal a few years back. And I've always been curious, like, how do they make money? And typically they'll make money from the merchant. So it's advantageous for the merchant to allow this and pay a fee, because if it's selling a furniture or a item that may be $1,000 or more, where you typically wouldn't just pay for it right then, you might be saving up for it. It will give an opportunity for somebody without the savings to go buy it now, and they'll be able to get their sales at the merchant side, and then the buy now pay later gets their percentage for the merchant, and the customer is able to use their cash that they have that they can budget out for the next couple months without paying interest. And they always say a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. So if you really wanted to make your money work for you, it gives you some time to use that money to make it work for you without paying interest.
And it's like you said, it's quick, it's easy, it doesn't necessarily affect your credit score, depending on the company, of course, but usually for most companies, they don't even pull your credit report. And so it is that quick and easy way to finance smaller purchases, or even maybe like medium-sized purchases. And some of the companies that are out there that offer these types of services. So when you do go out there and you see, the buy now, pay later model, you might see names like Affirm, Sezzle, Afterpay, PayPal's a big one. And there's many, many more. But just as an idea of, what are the actual companies that are providing these services? Now, Drew, You talked a little bit about how they provide those zero interests. And so it does seem at face value to be a very advantageous alternative than, let's say, credit cards for those people that do finance using a credit card. However, there's some hidden things that do go along with the buy now, pay later model. And that's going to be some companies might have some fees that you are not expecting of. I've also seen companies where they might provide 6 month zero interest, but if you bump that up to 12 or more months, then you're going to start paying interest on that, ultimately that's short-term loan. And so it's just some things that you have to look out for if you do are considering the buy now pay later method to making those purchases.
Yeah, and I've also seen on some of these companies, it all depends who you go through. So make sure if you are using one of these features to look into the fine print and make sure you know what you're paying for. Sometimes they'll just add a percentage of your sale right up front, and then they calculate that in and then make your installments out. So you're not necessarily paying interest on the dollar amount every month like you would say a mortgage or car loan. You'll just have that upfront percentage off your total sale, and that's what you'll be paying throughout the next couple weeks or months. So I've seen that is one option that some of these companies do. And then another thing I've seen with these buy now, pay later is they may be asking for a down payment. This could be as high as 25%. But if you're going to be putting this installment over the next couple weeks and you weren't able to purchase the full amount initially, you might be able to have that 25% on hand.
So, what are Drew? What are some of the other cons that exist in this buy now, pay later model? I know we talked about more of the pros here, where it's convenient, it's quick and easy. You're paying less interest, if no interest at all, compared to say a credit card, and you are able to then monthly budget those installment payments going into the next few months, up to 6, 12 months. But what are some of the cons when you're looking at the buy now, pay later model that our listeners should be well aware of?
Well, one of the articles I read, I don't remember exactly the source of it, but they were saying 55% of people say they tend to spend more with this buy now, pay later type of format. And I think that can be a con where it's very easy to purchase something you don't have money for if you're able to push that out the next couple months, and then you'll just have that certain dollar amount per month. So I think a chance for overspending can be very enticing and tempting for these buy now pay laters where you are able to afford it month to month, but in the grand scheme of things you really want to purchase this item, or do you really need to purchase this item? So I think that is one big con. And to kind of piggyback off that, depending on the which company you go with, there's a chance that if you go with this buy now pay later and you return your item, you may have to continue those payments. And that might even be, if you get the return and you get maybe the money back from the initial company, you'll sort of have to be paying off those rest of those installments to make sure that everything balances out.
If it's 0%, you should get the same amount of money as the payments are there. But it's just, one of those just small things that you have to to remember to make those payments. Otherwise, you're going to be faced with fees. And I think that's another con, that if you do miss a payment, you're going to be charged with a fee, as well as you might even get it reported to one, if not all, of the credit bureaus. So it could impact your credit score. I think that's a big con. And I don't think it really is shown because it seemed as just like a installment type payment plan. But there are some repercussions and consequences that happen when going along this line. Drew, I know another con that's out there is, for those people that do use credit cards and they pay them off every single month. And so maybe it doesn't necessarily apply, but if you do use credit cards and you pay it off, you are missing out on credit card points if you're going with the buy now, pay later model. Now, maybe, like I said, it might not fit because if you are using this model, you probably do not have enough money to pay off the credit card at the end of the month. But if you are looking at it as, well, do I put it on my credit card and pay it off, or do I use this buy now, pay later feature so that I can open up some excess cash flow? Say you have other things going on, or maybe you just want some cash safety. you are going to be missing out on those points. And I think that's another con just to think about.
Yeah, all in all, I mean, obviously there can be these pros and cons to these types of products. But really, if you're going into, just trying to go back to a couple pros here, I mean, if you're really going into purchase something that you really do need for your house and you didn't have emergency fund set up or it wasn't as filled as you'd like it to be, these can be a good option if you're getting the 0% interest and you're able to afford this the next couple months and you're able to budget for it the next couple months, maybe cut out a few things. It gives you that opportunity to get what needs to be done and still not drain your emergency fund down to zero, or it allows you to draw from that and keep adding to it until this purchase is made. So for that aspect of it, I think that can be a kind of a nice feature. Like I was saying earlier in the episode, there seems to be a need in the marketplace for this type of a product, and I'm sure they make a lot of money off people that don't want to be strict with their finances. But even the people that don't want to be strict with their finances, it's actually not a horrible option, because I'd much rather have somebody go into installment payments with 0% interest and go into credit card debt with 24% interest, and it's constantly adding a couple $100 maybe a month to your loan that you didn't have to pay off. So you're just constantly taking two steps forward and one step back. And with this, it's a step back, but you're slowly crawling to be able to go forward again.
If I'm gonna be really honest, if I take a step back and I think about the buy now, pay later feature, I honestly don't think it's a great feature whatsoever. And I don't necessarily mean that for everyone, because there are times when someone might have a financial issue where you're right, they do need to go out and buy, maybe it's clothes, those necessities that you need, and maybe you have to put it on an installment plan. But I would say, generally speaking, these types of products allow people that aren't in those types of situations to then create this installment plan. And you know what happens, Drew, when you start taking out these loans, you stack them one on top of the other, and then all of a sudden you're paycheck to paycheck, right? You think about, if you have a car loan, you have a credit card, and all of a sudden you have these installment loans, it can be a really slippery slope to building these debts. And once you are in debt, it's very challenging to get out of them, if not continue to build wealth down the line. So that's why I personally don't like these features whatsoever. I would not use it unless it was the last resort. But I think you're totally right in that there are niche cases where there's going to be people that would benefit from it, because you're not putting these purchases on a credit card. You're saving the 25% per year. And I would say only in those very unique cases is the buy now, pay later a good idea. Otherwise, just buy it in cash. If you can't afford it, save up. If it is one of those things where you are needing it, it's a necessity, I think maybe it's a chance to just revisit your budget and say, hey, you know what? Can I cut out things that aren't necessary or are not necessities, so that I can buy whatever this item is? Just my 2 cents, but I think that these types of products get people in a lot of trouble, for a vast majority of people.
A theme that we've said over and over again in this podcast, I think does come true or rings true with this as well, is a lot of people may take out the big mortgage or the big car loan, and it always is dependent on how much they can afford month to month. And this kind of can fall in there too, where you might be purchasing something that at the end of the year might not have been the best choice. Yes, you can afford that month to month, but in most cases, if or not most cases, but in some cases, if you were to potentially lose a job or switch jobs and have a certain time of period in between, these can cause some big headaches where you initially went into the purchase saying I can afford it, but you just never know what happens in those next couple weeks or months that could happen, that could really put you into a bad position. Like, God forbid, like you end up breaking a leg or something, and then all you have these health bills or these medical bills coming up that you didn't realize were part of your budget or needed to be part of your budget, and then you're like, man, I wish I wouldn't have bought this big purchase that I thought I could afford at the time, but uncertain circumstances come up and you're really struggling after that. So being able to look at something you do want, save up for it if you don't necessarily need it yesterday by any means, then um, definitely saving up, planning for it, being able to pay for it in cash is a better route.
Couldn't agree more. I think you put that very nicely. Generally speaking, don't use these unless you have to. If it's like a worst case scenario, last resort, love it.
And I have to say too, like, who really likes to constantly pay a bill every single month? If you're able to just get it out of the way initially, and obviously I know not everybody can, but if you can get it out of the way initially and not have to worry about the next couple weeks or months, I hate paying bills, and I don't know why I just get so lazy sometimes on them. It's like I just want to get them out of the way, get them out of my hair, so I don't have to worry about them.
I totally agree. Why? Well, I'm a big debt free guy, so I don't think that you should have any debt outside of maybe a mortgage or maybe a small car loan if you need it. But these, I think, like I said, these things just will add up. There's really no need because most likely you're buying it for things that are wants, not necessarily necessities. So I would just say stay away from them. When you're checking out online or you're checking out in the store, use your cash, use your credit card that you're paying off every single month. Don't go into these installment plans.
What was that rule that you had? Was it like 48 hours before you buy something?
Yeah, I like the 48-hour rule. If you want something, or if you think you want something that's a bigger purchase, take 48 hours. I've heard 24 hours, but I like the 2-day rule, 48 hours. Think about it. Do you actually need it? Do you actually want it? Are you going to use it? If so, can you afford it? If so, go ahead and go make that purchase.
And that's a great rule to bring into this because, as we say, having a 0% installment, you can afford it month to month. These are those times when you really make an impulse decision like, oh, I can make it. I'm going to pay for it. So take a step back, wait a couple days if you don't necessarily need it, and see if you actually need to purchase this item or not.
Drew, so you, I think, got this week's retweet of the week. What do you got for us?
I'll do two. I'll do one that's finance based, and I'll do one that is fun and homeowner based. Let's go with that. So the first one I retweeted to this last week, which is pretty good, was Costco had their earnings call, and one of the questions was, "Are you going to raise the price of the hot dogs at the Costco deli?" And he had one answer for that, and it was no. So inflation. Costco hot dogs are still inflation proof. So if you want to invest in something, invest in a stable coin of Costco hot dogs.
It's crazy. What is it, like $1.50 for a hot dog and a pop? It's something like that.
I'm embarrassed that I actually don't know the answer to this, but I swear it was like $1.50.
Yeah.
But I just see constantly memes about it. These cents inflation every single month. I think this last report for June was 9.1% inflation. So everything has been increasing. And the big joke these last year has been Costco better not raise their hot dog prices. And then they bring it up at earnings call. And then next thing you know, it was actually brought up at earnings call. And he says, no, we're not going to be raising the price of hot dogs.
If you dive into that just a little bit, like how ridiculous is it that in an earnings call where, specifically Costco, you're talking like hundreds, if not thousands of people are prepping for this one meeting. You go into this meeting, you talk about the earnings, you talk about projections and all that stuff. And all of a sudden an investor asks, are you raising the price of a hot dog? Like, if you put that in the grand scheme of it, it just sounds ridiculous.
Memes have power behind them. Like, there's such a community and there's such like a culture around memes. Who had ever thought? But that's literally been such a big thing. And I'm sure the whole Twitter just went crazy after seeing that one. Like, I would retweet it, so I guess I'm part of the party.
And it's also like one item in their whole store where like they could take a loss and then still like make it up elsewhere. So it's such a ridiculous question to have, but you're totally right. It probably is that, the meme, the how investors and even like smaller investors, like retail investors like us, are going to react to that type of news.
They're going to react to it. And then they're like, if they want to go behind other companies, be like, oh, I'm going to go behind Costco now compared to that or Walmart are, because like Costco heard us. We're heard. But anyway, so that was my finance based tweet. Second retweet of the week was one about being a homeowner, and the meme was the word homeowner has a word meow in it. Good luck pronouncing it correctly ever again. Home meower, meowner.
Yeah, how's oh yeah, how does that
Ho meowner.
hold me on there?
So I
That's
just thought it
ridiculous
was
too.
I just thought it was kind of fun. It was like so stupid that it just fun to retweet.
But
I was never
now every time someone reads the word homeowner, they're going to think of that. It's like everything else when it's like the glass shatters, there's no going back.
it's just like anybody that spells the word beautiful. They always go back to Bruce Almighty,
Yep.
BEA beautiful.
I do that every single time, and
Every
I've done
time.
that every single time for decades now.
Ever since that
Basically
movie.
since I was going to say basically since I've seen that movie.
I've never been a strong speller, but I can spell beautiful, no problem.
That's awesome. Well, those are some great retweets of the week. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. So, Drew, we're kind of in a predicament right now with this episode. We have had a fairly busy week on both of our ends. So, we haven't had a whole lot of time to record it at nighttime or, during the non working hours. So, we're kind of starting to fit this in. But I thought for this week in the neighborhood, we could let our listeners know, how little amount of time we have today to actually sneak this episode in.
Yeah, it's been a struggle. And if you are on YouTube watching and you've seen my eyes go down a little bit, it's because I actually have my kids or an iPad below with the camera on the kid right now. So I'm actually watching to see if he's actually awake or still sleeping. And we just needed to be able to sneak this in before the kids were awake. And we've been trying all these different times, and this time worked for Cavan and I, where his kids were down, my kids were down, or my kid was down, and we're just trying to get this thing out with still providing some good content. So we're hoping you guys still like the episode and some good stuff there, but we are racing against the clock by the time kids wake up.
I think, Drew, before we started, you said you have, maybe 60 minutes, give or take a few. So, typically when we record these episodes, it can take from start to finish anywhere from an hour. Sometimes, Drew, we've even gone like closer to 2 hours, with take up and record and take down and whatnot. And so we're trying to fit everything into like a 45-minute window. I'm looking at my clock right now. I can see how long we've actually been recording, and we're sitting at 25 minutes. So typically we're still in like the main segment of our podcast episode. So that this week's going to be a little bit shorter. That's because of we've got kids sleeping and we've got to get this thing done because we want to get it done, and we still want to provide you guys as much value as we can, even if it is a condensed week. But yeah, so it's been just one of those things that we've some adversity, I suppose you could say, Drew, that we've had to work through. And it's, we're going to look back at this and probably laugh at it.
Being a podcast named Neighborhood Money, I don't think there's anything more neighborhood than having the kids down to nap and still trying to work on some side hustle stuff on the side and trying to get it done before they wake up. So I think it's just fun that it's kind of like very family oriented. And I bet there's people out there that have been trying to sneak things in during their babies' naps, and they can completely relate to this, whether it's running an errand, whether it's cleaning the house, whether it's getting some stuff done around the house. So for any other parents out there that have had to sneak things in during nap time and trying to plan that out, let us know your stories. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. All right, Drew, let's wrap this thing up. It looks like we're going to have it under 30 minutes. Might be our shortest episode yet, but I think that's all right.
Yeah, this will probably be one of our shortest episodes, but we still hope that it still provided value for you listeners. Having these buy now, pay later products are something that have becoming more and more mainstream, and you might have seen them. We hope this episode is able to show you some of the pros and the cons with these products. So when you go in to buying your next purchase and you're thinking about this, you have the tools and the knowledge and some of the little tips and tricks to figure out if it's the right choice for you or not. And if anybody else out there has had went through these type of nap with their kids and try to get something done, we want to hear your stories because I'm curious, because I feel like everybody that has a kid has been trying to do this. So with all that said, we really appreciate you guys listening to this episode. We hope it still provided some values. If there's any more question that you have on these type of products, let us know. We'll try to get back to you. And with all that said, that wraps up this week's of Neighborhood Money Podcast, and we will see you next week in the neighborhood.